You're a translator. You do a lot of translation.
So I've translated from the German and
Right.
the Italian even, but if you got into a conversation with me in those languages, you wouldn't be impressed.
And you've translated Brecht, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you also have done a different kind of translation. So this is an ADL ad that is from another Israeli assault on Gaza. It's from 2014. And the ADL took out this ad in the Hollywood Reporter.
Mm-hmm.
It says, as talk turns to the future of Gaza, these haunting words of Golda Meir are as current as today's headlines. She could have been talking about Hamas. And then the quote is, we can forgive, in brackets, them. They don't put it in the fact that she was saying the Arabs. So what she really said was, we can forgive the Arabs for killing our children. We cannot forgive them for forcing us to kill their children. We will only have peace with the Arabs when they love their children more than they hate us. Golda Meir in 1957. And then it says, join us in calling upon world leaders and decent people everywhere to ensure that Hamas terrorists cannot be rearmed so the people of Gaza and Israel can move towards a more peaceful future. And then there are a bunch of Hollywood people, none of whom I've heard of except for Mayim Bialik of Blossom fame, and also Haim Saban. He's a huge contributor to the Democrats. And so you did your own translation of this. I'll read the editor's note just so people know what happens. Editor's note, playwright and actor Wallace Shawn is on the advisory board of Jewish Voice for Peace, which condemns Israeli attacks in Gaza. Shawn recently translated Henrik Ibsen's A Master Builder, a film by Jonathan Demme. Shawn submitted to the Hollywood Reporter this open letter to the Hollywood community. Okay, and now you can read what you wrote.
Over the decades, I've done quite a bit of work as a translator from various languages, and sometimes when I get home from work, I just can't stop. Yesterday, for example, I saw an ad in the Hollywood Reporter. It was in English, but its meaning was not immediately obvious at all. So I felt an overwhelming impulse to translate it. And then it goes on. The ad featured a statement that former Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir had made in the 1950s about, quote, the Arabs. But the ad, which leaves out the words, the Arabs, suggests that, quote, her haunting words are, quote, as current as today's headlines. She could have been talking about Hamas. The quotation, as it appears in the ad, is as follows, and I'm going to say the Arabs instead of them. We can forgive the Arabs for killing our children. We cannot forgive them from forcing us to kill their children. We will only have peace with the Arabs when they love their children more than they hate us. My quick personal translation of this would be, when we kill the children of Arabs, the Arabs made us do it. They hate us so much, they're so angry, that they do things that enrage us and make us kill children. If they were decent people who loved their children, they would set aside their hatred and stop provoking us, and we would then stop killing the children. Sometimes a translator feels compelled to argue with the text he's just translated, particularly when, as in the case of this ad, one is confronted by a photograph of the author that makes one vividly feel her presence. In this case, I can only say that despite her wise and thoughtful and grandmotherly face, Golda Meir can be interpreted as saying here that she plans to kill the children of Arabs up until the moment when, in her sole judgment, the Arabs stop feeling hate and become sufficiently unprovoking and pacified. Applying her remarks to the present day, as the signers of the ad suggest we should do, the ad seems fundamentally to be saying that it ought to be up to the current Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, to decide when the current killing ought to stop. I have to say, I feel that this ad, directed to members of the show business community, perhaps especially to Jewish members of the show business community, such as myself, takes as its premise a false view both of history and of the present situation. The broad outlines of the terrible history of the Jewish people over the centuries is relatively well known to many of us. But unfortunately, many members of the show business community are not very aware of the tragic history of the Palestinian people. And yet the fact is that in my own lifetime, I was born in 1943, the Palestinian people have been expelled from their land and subjected to unceasing and unjustifiable torment, including a brutal occupation, and in Gaza, a regime in which an entire population has been placed on a starvation diet. Anyone who learns more about what has happened can't help but realize that the anger of the Palestinians cannot be ended by killing their children. That is a fantasy. Human beings simply aren't made that way.
That was a great master translation.
And I hope you will remind people this is from...
Yes, 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as they said about her words, it could be now.
Well, it would be more extreme now because what's happening is so extreme.
Yes, of course, right. But I always find that quote particularly disgusting because, going back to what you said about how the Nazis at least tried to hide their crimes, and you have the banality of evil that Arendt introduced. But with Israel, you have this like celebration of sadism almost. It's all allowed because it has, the premise of it is this righteousness, right? In theory, it's because they're trying to kill us. So when we kill them, we're not being bad guys. We're just defending ourselves. And they have tried to kill us. They think we're weak. And so our being really aggressive is like the fulfillment of our destiny and the rejection of anti-Semitism, which casts us as weak, diaspora Jews cowering in the corner as the Cossacks, rape our women or whatever. This morality that they try to inject into it where, we would love to not kill these kids. It's so unfortunate. If, we'll stop killing them as soon as they stop teaching their kids to hate us. It's just such a sick thing to pretend that this is a moral war. And it's so undermined by the actual documentary evidence.
I mean, there's something, it's almost foolish to speculate, but it's almost as if today's Israelis were taking revenge for all the thousands of years of persecution of the Jews. It's not something that you can easily explain.